All right, we're about to get into the really incredible story of the Pakistan Navy. This is a story about a force that started with basically nothing, got almost completely wiped out in a single war, and then somehow managed to rise from those ashes to become a serious modern strategic power. It's a fascinating look at how total failure can sometimes forge incredible strength.
So let's just start with the big question that frames this whole thing. I mean, put yourself in this position. You're in charge of a navy, and in the span of just a few weeks, literally half of your entire fleet is at the bottom of the sea, damaged or captured. How do you even begin to come back from that? This isn't just a thought experiment. For the Pakistan Navy, this was a devastating reality. To really understand this comeback, we've got to rewind all the way back to the very beginning. And for the Pakistani Navy, it was a really tough start. The story begins in 1947, right in the middle of the violent partition of British India. This was an event that split an entire subcontinent and its military in a very, very lopsided way. And when you look at how the naval assets were divided, the imbalance is just, wow, it's stark. The old Royal Indian Navy's hardware was split on a 2-to-1 basis, which heavily favored India. Pakistan was left with just a handful of older ships, a couple of frigates and sloops, some minesweepers, but here's the real kicker. They got no major naval dockyards. India kept the main facility in Bombay, which meant Pakistan had no real way to repair or maintain its fleet.
And the problems went way beyond just ships and docks. They had a huge people problem. The brand new Navy had only about 200 officers and 3,000 sailors. The most senior Pakistani officer was just a captain, with very little of the high-level staff experience you'd need. Plus, in a new country that was obsessed with its land borders, the Navy was just not a priority. It was constantly starved for cash and attention. Really, the forgotten service from day one.
So for about 2 decades, this under-equipped and underfunded Navy just kind of struggled along. But then, 1971 happened. The war that would create Bangladesh was also the moment that would lead to the Pakistan Navy's near-total destruction, and it forced them into a complete, ground-up strategic reset. The speed of the collapse was just shocking. On December 4th, the Indian Navy launched Operation Trident. It was a surprise missile boat attack on Karachi harbor. Bam! 2 Pakistani warships sunk. On the very same day, the pride of their fleet, their only long-range submarine, the PNS Ghazi, was lost. 4 days later, a second attack, Operation Python, did even more damage. And then, in just a tragic twist, a friendly fire incident left another major frigate, the PNS Zulfikar, severely damaged. It was a disaster. And the human cost was just staggering. Almost 1,900 sailors and officers were lost. For a small, young service, a blow like that is catastrophic. This one number really tells you everything you need to know about the scale of the disaster they were facing. And this quote from the scholar Tariq Ali just hits the nail on the head. This wasn't just a tactical defeat. It was a catastrophe. The Pakistan Navy lost half of its entire force. Destroyers, submarines, gunboats, just gone. It was effectively crippled, and its whole pre-war strategy was left in absolute ruins. But you know, it's out of that complete disaster that a new beginning was forged. The Navy's leadership knew they could never, ever again get into a conventional head-to-head slugging match with a bigger Navy. They needed a totally new way of thinking about naval warfare, a strategy born from weakness that they could maybe turn into a strength. And this is the brilliant philosophy they landed on: sea denial. The logic is simple. If you can't control the sea, you make it so dangerous and so costly that your enemy can't control it either. The whole idea is to use things that are hard to find and pack a punch, like submarines and fast missile boats, to deny a larger navy the freedom to operate near your shores. It's the classic asymmetric move. You don't have to win the fight, you just have to make the price of fighting way too high for your opponent. So this idea led to a really clear 4-step playbook for survival and rebirth. Step 1, face the facts. Your big surface ships are sitting ducks. Step 2, adopt sea denial as your core belief. Step 3, make submarines your absolute #1 priority. And step 4, a big one, diversify who you buy your stuff from. Stop relying on just 1 or 2 countries for all your hardware. And they put this plan into motion immediately. The Navy turned to France and started buying a series of more and more advanced submarines. The real game changer, though, was the Augusta 90B class. These came with something called air-independent propulsion, or AIP. What that technology does is it lets a non-nuclear sub stay underwater for weeks at a time instead of just days. That makes it way, way stealthier and much more dangerous. This was the new sea denial strategy taking physical form.
Okay, so you fast forward through decades of this very focused effort, and you get the Pakistan Navy of today, a force that looks radically different from what it was before 1971, and one with a much, much bigger strategic job to do.
I mean, just look at the diversity of where their gear is coming from now. We're seeing ships with origins in China, Turkey, and the USA, and many of them are being built or co-produced right in Pakistan. This just shows how successful that decision after 71 to diversify their suppliers really was. From modern Chinese frigates to new Turkish corvettes and those new AIP-equipped submarines, the fleet is now a really potent mix of global tech.
But the Navy's modern role goes so far beyond just defending the coastline. It has now been given the ultimate strategic responsibility, protecting the nation's second strike capability.
So, what does that actually mean? Well, a second strike capability is basically the cornerstone of nuclear deterrence. It's your guaranteed ability to hit back hard, even if your country has just been devastated by a first attack. It's the ultimate insurance policy. And what's the most survivable platform on planet Earth for that insurance policy? A nuclear-armed submarine, hiding somewhere deep in the vastness of the ocean. Those quiet, long-endurance submarines the Navy prioritized are the perfect tool for exactly this mission. This story of transformation is still being written. The Navy is continuing to modernize, adapting to its critical role in one of the most important maritime regions in the world. And the efforts we've been talking about are all still going. More advanced frigates and corvettes are entering the fleet. A whole new generation of submarines, the Hangor class, is set to become the backbone of the underwater force. And you see that they're pursuing a sea-launched nuclear cruise missile? Well, that ties directly back to that vital second strike mission. It is the sea denial strategy still evolving decades and decades later.
So we end up right back where we started, with a question about the future. The story of the Pakistan Navy is just a powerful example of how complete disaster can forge a new identity. It shows us that in naval warfare, it's not always about having the most ships, it's about having the smartest strategy. And as the Indian Ocean becomes a more and more crowded and contested space, the role of adaptable, strategic navies like this one is only going to become more critical.